This is what I call gold in the used bin. We're going to focus our first segment on Bobby Womack, in particular Bobby Womack's album, Understanding. Bobby was born in 1944 and passed from this earth in 2014. In more than 60 years, he recorded, performed jazz, gospel, country, R&B, funk, rock, pop, and even trip-hop. His songs have been widely covered and performed by artists such as Aretha Franklin, Wilson Pickett, Jay Giles Band, Prince, Percy Sledge, and Janis Joplin. His career began in the 1950s with a family band, kind of a Jackson 5 type situation. He was the lead singer of the group. His brother, Harry, was the bass player. He got his first experience performing and recording, but he really got into the music business proper when he joined Sam Cooke's band, writing and recording as lead guitarist with Sam Cooke. Sadly, Sam was killed way too soon, and the legendary singer left this big hole in the soul scene at that time. But also, it was quite the blow for Bobby Womack, who had to kind of figure out what to do next. In that interim time, he married the widow of Sam Cooke, which ostracized him from the entire soul and R&B scene, eventually landing him a broken jaw and a fist fight over it, which set him back even further. Not being able to record, not being able to be involved, he started to influence things from behind the scenes, recording and doing session work, but also writing for lots of people. This led to him working with George Benson, Patti LaBelle, Mary Wells, and later in life, as he continued to collaborate and work with lots of folks, he recorded with Los Lobos, Lana Del Rey, and the Gorillaz. Personally, he battled a lot of drug and alcohol abuse. He had 2 bouts with cancer, diabetes, 3 rocky marriages, 6 kids, 2 of which died as children. So he had plenty of tough times to sing about and to inform his performing and his music. Close pal of his, Sly Stone, and Bobby would party for weeks, having these legendary binges, both of them being equal drug abuse enthusiasts. But it took a toll on him. Eventually his health began to decline, gained a reputation as not being reliable, just missing sessions, not being at the top of his game as his health began to decline. The first single on the album is the second song on the album, Woman's Gotta Have It, and it has this amazing bass line on it that immediately, of course, hooked Regula, and it holds the song together, giving it almost this sort of What's Going On vibe. Marvin Gaye's What's Going On kind of sound. Has that uplifting kind of floating quality to it, with Mike Leach's bass gluing it together. At times it seems like he's having this conversation with the keyboard from Bobby Woods. This is a classic organ part that he plays. Became his first R&B hit, went number 1 on the R&B charts. And then eventually reached about 43 on the Billboard chart, becoming his first real big hit. Obviously not the Beatles or something like this, but a pretty big hit for him. Followed it up with Sweet Caroline, and the B-side was Harry the Hippie, again dedicated to his brother, Harry, who was a bass player in the original Valentinos and a kind of free spirit. Coincidentally, he performed Harry Hippie throughout his career, making it one of his staple songs, and then dedicated a scholarship fund to Harry, who always dreamed of going to college. At any rate, the DJs didn't dig the Sweet Caroline cover. As I mentioned, it's pretty lame. But they did like Harry the Hippie, and they started playing it. And eventually the record company re-released it so that Sweet Caroline was the B-side, Harry the Hippie was the A-side, and it was a hit after that. Regula found this in a bargain bin, essentially, at a little record store in Kenton neighborhood of Portland while we were living there. Kenton being one of the last African-American communities. As gentrification happens, African-American folks are always forced to move on to new neighborhoods, from the Mississippi neighborhood and on to Kenton. And Kenton was one of the last ones to still have African-American folks and businesses. And it was a great place to live. We really enjoyed it. And I always associate this album with that neighborhood. This thing has seen some action. It is rather battered. Beautifully presented album. Somebody gave it a little gold star, which I think is kind of funny. I mean, sure, it deserves it. This is a wonderful, wonderful picture of Bobby as well. This is, for anybody who collects vinyl, this part of the whole appeal, the being able to hold on to something, the physical product of record collecting. But also there's oftentimes the lyrics sheets and the artwork and all those things, and the production of it is something that's quite interesting. This is one of 3 albums from a trilogy that he did in the early 70s, Understanding, and Facts of Life being part of that trilogy, all rounding out at about 1973. One of his kids on the front here, kind of a nice little moment that they captured. As going out and collecting records, sometimes you find these incredible gems. This was a record that once it came into the house, immediately it just felt like our apartment was a much nicer place. It felt like it was really wonderful background music at times, but then also we really, really connected with this album. He was recording in Muscle Shoals, legendary Muscle Shoals down in Alabama. He worked with some of those session guys, and he worked in Memphis too at a studio called American Sounds that didn't last very long. So he used a kind of combination of Memphis players and the Muscle Shoals guys. It's an interesting combination. When it works, it's just a fantastic album. The best tracks on it are just super. Second side, after the amazing track Simple Man, which is just classic early 70s blaxploitation sound, really thick sound, amazing recording, it just takes a nosedive into all kinds of weird covers. Ruby Dean is a kind of strange version of the song that Kenny Rogers made famous of Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town. It's almost that, but it's a kind of mutation of it. And then a really flat version of Sweet Caroline, which you just kind of nod along to and go, why is he doing this? He doesn't seem convinced of it. He doesn't seem like he's trying to sell it. It's really kind of unsure why he does it, unless they were just trying to fill some space on the album around these really fantastic tracks, which may have been the case. How do we fill up the whole long play album? The first song, Simple Man, was a rather long track, and it actually became a club hit because of that. The DJs could put it on and just keep the floor packed. It's particularly big R&B scenes in the Northeast, but also in gay clubs that liked the longer dance tracks before there was such a thing as a 12-inch remix. Throughout the 80s, in the late 70s, people weren't as interested in Bobby Womack. Although he was sampled by lots of hip-hop artists through the years, he was basically on the retro circuit, nostalgia circuit, and playing casinos and things. Until Quentin Tarantino released a film called Jackie Brown. Now, the original Just Across 110th Street had already become his song, his classic song, the one that everybody associates with Bobby Womack. But it was in the original blaxploitation film Across 110th Street. The retro version, Jackie Brown, starred Pam Grier, who had been the sort of queen of the blaxploitation era, Foxy Brown and all these films. It was a nod towards that era of filmmaking. The funny thing is that it's rumored that Pam Grier sang on this album, Understanding, and several other albums from Bobby Womack, because she did backup vocals at Muscle Shoals and in Memphis. So all of a sudden, everybody wanted to work with Bobby Womack again, and he had a second life to his career. Lots of artists wanted to work with him, including Lana Del Rey. Mos Def, Lou Reed, Snoop Dogg through the Gorillaz, and then eventually he ended up touring with the Gorillaz. He was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He won an MTV award late in his life for the Plastic Beach collaboration with the Gorillaz. And he finally got the recognition and acclaim that he had always deserved as a performer. Thanks for hanging out. Hope you enjoyed it. We're going to try to go through our record collection, talk to you about some of our favorite releases. I didn't intend for this to really be about the upper strata. So if you enjoyed it and you just want to hear about the records, thanks for listening. On a side note though, Regula and I got to see Bobby perform with the Gorillaz. And that's kind of one of our personal connections to Bobby, is that we did get to see him just rock the stage with the Gorillaz. And he did a little bit of 110th Street, and then he did the song that he had collaborated with the Gorillaz on. And he just tore it up. He just really, really impressed us. So it was amazing to get to see such a legend in person. As well, on the song Line and the new album, we have a song called Pearl in the Shell. Both of those songs, to me, are trying to capture some quality of Bobby's music. So he's definitely had an influence on my thinking about music and delivery of my singing. Thanks again for listening. Bye.